Hi and welcome to the Foodbod Pod YouTube channel. This is the YouTube channel that supports our podcast, the Foodbod Pod, that you can find on all major podcast platforms. And in this episode, this is our braiding and breaking bread episode. And I'm very excited because in this episode we feature some of the members from my Facebook group, my Sourdough with Foodbod Facebook group. And these ladies are ladies who have learned to make sourdough through me and are lovely members of our group. And one of them in particular, Anne Iachi, also makes challah bread. So I do encourage you to also please listen to the audio of the podcast, because on the audio you will hear Anne and Karine and a handful of other members of the group giving you various tips from their kitchen. But here on the video, what you'll see is Anne and I in my kitchen. We are talking about Anne's food background, her food choices, her tips in the kitchen, what developed her food choices and her tastes. But also she is showing us how to braid challah dough. So this is really good fun. This is just a small part of the podcast so that you can see the visual. But also we then shared some wonderful food. Anne and Karine bought some lovely food with them and we sat down and shared that together. Sadly, you don't get to see that bit with us all talking with our mouths full. But what you will find is some recipes on the website. So enjoy. I hope you enjoy the conversation and the bread braiding. I hope you can see it okay. If you've got any questions, do send them through. I'll forward them on to Anne as well. But please do listen so you can hear Karine's kitchen tips, because she's got some lovely tips and sharing the story of her food and the food that's cooked in her home. So watch here. Listen on the podcast, visit the website for the recipes and details. We've got it covered. We've got it all covered for you everywhere. So I hope you enjoy it. Today we are in my kitchen and you find me here today with Anne Iachi. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome back to my kitchen. I know you've been here before. I'm very excited to have you here today, but also to be able to learn a bit more about you and for people to be able to hear your tips. We're going to be playing with some dough. So before we get ahead of that, Anne, I know that you bake a lot for other people. You are on Instagram as My Little Baker. Okay.
Little home baker.
Little home baker.
Do you want to take that again?
Yeah, I know you do lots of baking. You do baking for yourself, your family, and for other people. And you're on Instagram as
Little home baker.
Okay, so if anybody wants to find Anne, it's Little Home Baker. And we all love seeing what you're baking. So, what is your favourite thing to bake?
That's a very hard question. I love it all. But actually bread in general is my favourite. So I do a lot of biscuits, cakes and all kinds of stuff because people ask for it.
Yes.
But bread is definitely my favourite. That's something I've discovered during lockdown and I love it.
Okay, so as people will notice, Anne has an accent. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Belgium.
Okay. And what would you say is your kind of culinary background? What kind of foods were you brought up with? What do you bring with you?
Probably quite European food, I would say, with good bread dough.
Yeah.
Bread and cheese for breakfast.
Nice.
And we had a baker dropping off bread 3 times a week. Fresh bread, so that was great. And then just the usual meat to veg for lunch, because we had our main meal at lunch.
Yeah. And
then something small for dinner.
Okay, and do you feel like you've brought those kind of choices and food habits with you to the UK then?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So there's certain dishes that my mum used to make that I do, but most of the stuff is things that I picked up over the years, living in different countries, liking different foods. My mum used to cook one special thing at the weekend, but the rest of the week was just the regular things that we used to have every week, week in, week out.
I think a lot of people grew up with that. A lot of people in this country, I mean, I didn't grow up necessarily in this country, but when I talk to people in the UK, like I know with my husband's family, you ended up with the same thing on a Tuesday and a Wednesday and a Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't really realise that's what occurred because it's not what happened for me.
So for my mum it was easy because she used to go shopping once a week. She didn't drive. She used to go shopping once a week and then separated everything, put everything in the freezer, and then we had food for the whole week. My dad used to go to the market on a Saturday after work and then brought it back, whatever vegetables or fruit that was on offer, and that's what we had during the week.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I know with my
Makes
husband's
life
family,
easy.
there was 3 boys. You
Yeah.
know, it makes sense. There was no waste.
Yeah.
Which really, you know, I suppose it's functional. It's quite useful.
100%.
So, one of the things that we ask everybody we talk to, which I'd like you to share, is what are your 3 top tips in the kitchen?
So for me, first of all, I live on my own.
Yes.
So I cook for one,
Right.
which is not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, I enjoy cooking, but cooking for one is a bit boring.
Yeah.
So I generally batch cook
Okay.
and have homemade ready meals in the freezer. So
Oh,
my freezer is always full. It's a great way for, first of all, to one, eat healthy, which is, you know, my real job is a healthy lifestyle coach.
Yes.
So as a nutritionist, it is important for me to encourage people to eat healthily. So one of the ways to do it is by batch cooking.
Yeah.
So one, it brings a price down, cost of living, etc. But also you can have healthy, good food every day without having to be in the kitchen every day.
Yeah.
And I think that issue about cooking for one is a really big issue for a lot of people, and some of our supermarkets I know here in the UK in recent months, recent years have started deliberately packaging meals for one, not just ready meals, but you know, ingredients for one.
They do, but
So
the price is
expensive.
expensive.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's where, you know, if you buy the normal size stuff or whatever is on offer, you know, everything you can cook, freeze
Yeah.
straight away, whatever. It's, you know, there's no reason.
But you've got to have
to
the time to do it. That's the thing, and a
Yeah,
lot
but
of
you know
lot
what?
of people
Cooking
are.
for one or for 4 takes exactly the same amount of time.
But a lot of people, that because of if they on their own, their lifestyles and so on, they don't necessarily have the time to cook. So you know, maybe they need to think about changing the way they eat in order to make that time.
So that's one of the things. So when I used to travel a lot for work, I used to say, you know, I'm too busy to be healthy. But actually, if I had, you know, taken the time to think about it, I probably cook once or twice a week. That's all I do. And the rest, I just take a home-cooked ready meal out of the freezer and, you know, reheat it in one way or another. So it's not
But don't
so
you
much
think, yeah,
about the
it
time.
comes back to a planning thing,
Yes,
doesn't it?
definitely.
Is
And that's my second tip.
Okay.
Is really you have to plan, especially being on your own. You have to plan your meals. You can do it in lots of different ways. So for my mum, it was going to the supermarket once a week, but knowing that on Monday we had, you know, steak with grated carrots, and on Tuesday we had a veal chop with, you know, roasted tomatoes, etc., etc. Or you can go to the supermarket and say, okay, what's on offer?
Yeah.
Get all that stuff and then make some meals out of it. And then the night before you decide which of the meals are you going to take out of the freezer, which is probably the way I do it.
But I think planning makes some things so much more cost efficient as
Yes.
well. So I remember when I first got together with my husband, and the first time we ever went shopping, and we're in Tesco's, and I'm walking around and I'm just grabbing things, and he's like, hang on, when are you going to eat that? I don't know. And it was because of his mentality was different from mine. You know, from that point forward, we're then making a plan and making a shopping list, and actually it is so much more cost efficient as well, because you're not just picking up things for the sake of it.
So
So
my phone is
planning-
full of a shopping list.
Yes, so is
Like
mine.
my notes has got everything.
Yeah,
in
yes,
it.
and you know, it'll be Ben going, you know, could put this on the list, because actually if you're doing it when it's relevant rather than just all over the shop.
But I think
Yeah.
that's also the difference between male shoppers and female shoppers. I think female shoppers are far more instinctive about, oh, I can use that, I can put that with that, I can make a meal. Whereas guys need a list. because it's already worked through what they're going to prepare.
Yeah, but then why does my husband come back with a lot of things that weren't on the list?
Because you've educated him.
And because maybe I don't write crisps on the list.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and what would your third tip be?
The third tip is just, experiment with stuff, I would say. As I said, I was brought up with very, I wouldn't call it boring food, but it's just, the samey food on a regular basis. And as I said, my mum once a week, she used to try another recipe or something. And today there's just so much out there. It's just try and see what you like. And very important, especially I see that with my clients, is, you have most of them have never tried so many fruit, veg, different food, spices and all this kind of stuff. They never tried, and it's about trying and experimenting. I think that's one big one that I see day in, day out. I had clients who never had couscous, never had mushrooms, never had courgettes, never had all these things, and it's just like, how is that possible? It's about trying and opening your taste buds. And whatever you disliked when you were a kid, you might like today as well. I never used to like avocados, I love it. I hated fish, love it. So there's lots of things that I hated in the past that I now really, really enjoy.
And I think as well, that's one of the reasons we're doing what we're doing. We want to talk to different food people. We want to bring some different ideas and influences. That's why we've recorded a spice episode. That's why we're asking people for their recipes and ideas from their kitchens, because someone might just go, oh yeah, there's an idea, I can throw that in and see what happens. So there does need to be a bravery, but also it does need to go hand in hand with the planning and with being cost efficient.
Yep.
So, and there are ways of doing all of those things. So I think, therefore, I know what kind of answer you might have for the next question then. What do you like to do with leftovers?
Cook and freeze. That's kind of, but it depends what kind of leftovers they are. I love soups.
Yep.
So chuck it all in the soup pot. That's probably one of them. And then otherwise, just, have a meal with a little bit of everything.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Little bits and
Mix
pieces
and match.
of what's
Leftovers are the best, to be honest.
And I think that as well, I know that's the kind of thing that I would do, is if you've got little bits of everything. I think because of, with growing up in the Middle East and being introduced to meze and lots of little dishes, and a meal doesn't have to be just a single thing on one plate.
Yeah.
That there can be all those different elements and different flavours.
And that's the thing as well. You discover when you have leftovers, you discover what flavours go with what as well.
Yeah.
And then the next time you cook, you can say, well, actually, that was nice together. Let's put it together in a dish.
And you create a whole new set of flavours for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my other question, if I came to your house as a vegetarian, what would you feed me?
One of my there's loads of things I would feed you, to be honest. One is, I know you love spanakopita.
Yes.
That's probably one of them. But I love a lentil shepherd's pie.
Oh,
Really nice lentil shepherd's pie.
okay.
That's probably another thing I would make for you.
Lovely.
And obviously, probably some sourdough for you to try. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Everybody wants me to try their bread.
I know you tried mine before and you liked it, but yes.
Okay, so one of the reasons that you're here with us today is because you are our braiding queen.
Ooh.
So you're also our challah queen. So we have in front of us some dough that is currently being portioned and is proving again. Could you just give us the basics of what is in a challah dough, what makes it the right thing?
Okay, so challah is kind of an enriched bread.
Yes.
I never grew up having it as sourdough, but there are some people that today make it sourdough, so I always had it yeasted, which is what I do. I feel that the sourness and the sweetness of challah just doesn't go together, for me anyway. So in it is flour, water, oil,
right.
Because in an enriched dough like brioche and stuff you'd have butter, but because of the kosher rules you wouldn't mix milk and meat. so which is why there's oil in it.
Right.
So you could have it with any meal you want. You'd have, I would put eggs in it, some other people wouldn't. And then you have some kind of sugar. I use honey.
Right.
And salt.
Okay.
Did I say yeast? So there's 7 ingredients. If you have the eggs, there's 7 ingredients, which as an anecdote, some people would say, well, it's like the 7 days of the week. And you'd have it on the 7th day, so you've got 7 ingredients in it. So when I count my ingredients before I make it, I have to count to 7.
Okay.
So,
That's a nice tradition then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the dough that we've got in front of us has already been made and proved once.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And how long would it typically take to prove challah dough if you're making it yeasted?
yeah. So depending on temperature in your house, it would be between 45 minutes and an hour and a half.
Okay.
Now you could prepare it. I often just prepare it, mix it, and then put it in the fridge to prove overnight.
Right.
My sister-in-law proves it twice. So she proves it for an hour, knocks the air out, and then proves it the second time before braiding. So everyone's got their own traditions and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, local breads, really.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to come on to making and braiding and shaping this in a minute. And you're going to give me a bit of a lesson.
I will.
So I'm going to remind everybody now that we have got a YouTube channel. Please look at the Foodbod Pod on YouTube so that you can see us doing this. We're going to take as many shots as we can overhead as well as facing so that you can see the shaping. And I must give you a big heads up here because Anne taught me some braiding and shaping last year, and the braiding and some of the recipes in my 3rd book from the lessons that you taught me. So this is why you will see Anne named in my book, because Anne has been my braiding teacher. So she's here today to give us a bit of a lesson. David's going to have a go as well, which I know he's very excited about. And we're looking forward to eating and trying and playing. So.
Yes. So then, what I love about challah is the flexibility of the dough. So,
and that's what it seemed to me when I was playing
it's like
with it.
Play-Doh, really.
Yeah, and it is similar to when I make my enriched sourdough. One of the things that I loved, that I was so pleased with when I was writing the 3rd book, was when you make that enriched dough, you know, it is quite a different texture from just a standard bread dough, because it is more solid, it is easier to handle. But the beauty for me is I found with it, once it was fully proved and that lovely smooth surface, I then shove it in the fridge. And it can be in there for an hour, it can be in there for longer. If you then use it direct from the fridge, you can literally roll it out like pastry. And you can roll it really thin, play with it, shape it, roll it up, do what you like, and it will still come back.
Yeah.
And your challah dough was the same for me. It is like Play-Doh and handling something different. And when you go from a standard sourdough dough, that isn't possible. So I tried years ago, I tried shaping some, I tried braiding some sourdough. So I got my master recipe. I hadn't kind of figured out the putting it in the fridge thing to firm it up yet. So I've chopped it into 3 and I'm trying to braid it. And as I'm doing it, it's stretching and stretching. It's getting longer and longer and it's coming off the table and I'm ending up with these great long pieces of dough that I'm then having to wrap around it and pretend is part of the pattern. So using this, you know, your challah dough or the enriched dough is just a pleasure to work with.
So I have made a version, a sourdough version, which is actually very, very similar in ingredients. So quantities as well, that my usual one. It's, you know, if you like it, it's great. If you add, so I made it for your Christmas party. Yeah. But I just added some za'atar into it.
Lovely.
And then it's not a problem because you don't have that issue of the sweetness and the sourness that you know is fighting together. So
but then for me, see, I like that because I don't like really sweet.
Yeah.
So actually, for
It's
me,
not
the sourdough
sweet,
element
but
takes it down a bit.
It
to a certain
does,
extent.
but that's the whole thing about challah. It's kind of, it's a bit like, you know, about having something special for, you know, the Friday night, Saturday, which is a Shabbat. So lots of people, for instance, if you don't have a lot of money, make sure that on, you know, Friday night or Saturday they have meat in the house,
Right.
which they might not eat the rest of the week. This is one of those things where you just like, it's an enriched dough, it's a special dough, it's not just water, flour and salt. It's something special for a special day. So you want to taste all the stuff that's in it.
But I have also seen you add inclusions. You often do add some bits into
I do. I've got one friend who loves his sun-dried tomato, jalapeno and chilies in it.
Wow.
Which I personally wouldn't eat, but he loves it.
Customer is always right.
Yes, definitely. So I don't mind whatever I put in it. It's fine.
Okay.
On Jewish New Year, I'd add some raisins to it. Again, for a sweet New Year.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, so lots of people just use sugar. On the Jewish New Year, you would add honey instead of sugar.
Okay.
And I just do honey all year round because I just love the flavour.
So really, it's quite a flexible dough then,
Yeah.
really.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We're back with the dough. So tell us what you've done with it now.
So I portioned it up
Yes.
before, left it for 15 minutes,
Yes.
and then started rolling it out in braids. Now,
So when you portion it up, it up, you split it into
as many
particular
pieces
weights.
as you want.
Okay.
So, like generally, my dough with 500 gram flour
Yeah.
makes about 860 gram of dough.
Right.
If I do a full braided challah, it would be about 215 gram per strand.
Okay.
So I portion it up in 215.
And that needs to be quite precise.
Well, if you want to have an even challah, yeah, definitely.
Right. Okay.
Now, then you portion it up, you make a little ball,
Yeah.
and you leave it to rest for 15 minutes,
Right.
so that the dough relaxes. And then you roll it up as a strand. Now, some people take a rolling pin, start rolling it out, and then make it as a strand. We're gonna do it on the small one, so you'll see.
Right.
I just take it, and as you can see, it's not very even. But once you start braiding, it's fine.
So you take the ball and you're rolling it on the surface so that
Yeah.
you're rolling it out into a strand.
Yeah.
And you want the strands to be pretty much similar lengths.
Yeah, similar length. That's the most
So
important.
if there's a little bit of a bump in it, it's fine
Fine.
because that's going to come out as you
Yes,
braid it.
exactly.
Okay, so what's the next step with
So
this?
the next step
Can I
is,
just ask, Anne, is there a traditional number of strands for different kinds of challah?
so yes and no. Some people will use 6 because eventually there's kind of this tradition that you want to have 12 bumps
Right.
for the 12 tribes of Israel.
Okay.
But lots of people just use 4. Actually, most of the people just use 3.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah. And which is much easier to braid as well.
3 is way
presumably.
easier
Yeah,
to
yeah.
braid. We're going to do some 3 when we're going to play around a bit and be creative. And I'll show you how.
So Anne has got now the 4 strands
Yeah.
are all laid out so they're all in line together, so they're parallel.
They're about the same size as you can see.
And you've got the end.
top.
So we've taken the 4 strands and you've pinched them all together at the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're taking one over to the edge.
Stop banging the phone.
Yeah. And the other one. So the 2 outer ones.
The 2 outer ones
Get
cross
crossed
right
over.
across the top. Okay.
Yeah. Then the one that's fully at the top,
The one that's most at the top.
yeah, goes into the middle.
Okay, into the middle of the 2 that you had left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the one from, so that's not all over, replaces it.
Okay.
Okay. And then this one is now at the top, right? From
Yes.
these 2. So that goes in the middle.
Okay, you're really going to have to watch this on the video.
And this now needs to replace it.
Okay. So every
Okay.
time you move one across, you need to
Yeah.
replace it from the other side.
Exactly. And that's like a crisscross thing.
Okay.
And you can do the same with 6, with 8, with any
I mean, you see
even
people
number.
doing these things with like huge numbers of strands,
Yes.
and it looks just amazing.
And it's exactly the same. So
So you're always kind of filling the
you're
space.
always filling the space. Yeah.
How old were you when you learned to do this?
2 years ago.
Oh, really? That recent?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
only used to do 3 before. And then obviously, and at the end, you just pinch it together.
So once you finish, you just pinch it
And
together and
I'll
tuck the ends
tuck it
under a
in.
bit.
And then I like to squish it
And squeeze it in a bit.
so that it gets a nice shape.
And what now happens with that?
So that you put on your baking tray.
Okay, so we've got lined baking trays here.
Put it in, put it on.
Yeah.
And then you just cover it. I cover it with a towel. Some people do cling film. And then you leave it, depending on your house temperature, for between 45 minutes, sometimes up to an hour and a half in the winter.
Okay.
An hour, I would say.
So on the table behind us, some sun is shining through. Is it worth putting it there, or is that too hot?
That's too hot, probably. Then you might only need half an hour.
Okay. So if we're going to put it to the side of me then, so that it's out of the sunshine, and we'll let it prove again, will that double?
It will double, yeah, most probably.
And is that the point at which you know to bake, or is there something that you look for?
I look for time and temperature.
Right, okay.
But yeah, you'll see it puff up. You could do the poke tests.
Yeah.
Again, it's not massively accurate like, with sourdough as well. It gives you an idea. Okay. People who use a cling film, it will prove much faster. Okay. And it will be a little bit sticky maybe. Yeah. I like the towel, so it's a bit drier when it dries a little bit. Okay. But that's how I like to do it.
Right. Yeah. So we'll cover that one over and put that one to the side. Yeah. Okay. So what are we doing next?
So that's one option. Okay. Next one, we're going to do a little roll.
A little roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little roll that is also using some seeds.
Okay.
So the way, as I said, some people take the rolling pin, rolling it out. I just flatten it out.
So you've got a little ball of dough. You're flattening it out, and then you're rolling it over itself. And then you're using both hands to roll it outwards to turn it into a strand.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, I've got to do one now.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. So we've got the little ball, flattening it in the middle, folding it over onto itself, and just rolling out.
Yes.
So using both hands to roll it out so it comes into a nice strand. Mm-hmm. Have I got it a similar kind of length?
Yeah, it will.
This dough is so nice to work with because it is so different. It's not on your hands. It's not on anything.
There's a bit. So obviously there's oil in the dough, and there was oil in the bowl as well when it was rising.
In the bowl. Okay. Yeah.
Lots of people you'll see if you watch some videos, they sprinkle a bit of flour. I never found any reason to do that. Actually, when I did the sourdough challah, I needed a little bit of flour, but really minimal. Okay. Now we're going to make it really nice, and we're going to add some seeds.
Okay.
So the way I do it, you could put that in water, but then it gets very messy.
So Anne's got a small bowl of water, and we've got some black sesame seeds already on a large flat plate.
Yeah, so I just wet it a bit.
So you're massaging some water into the dough with your fingers. And then you're going to place the dough
on the seeds. Now, when I used to put the whole dough in water, the strand in water and then seeds, you got very messy kitchen.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, not a good thing to do.
So we're going to
that's one strand.
Okay, and you don't necessarily store the strands, do you? Because you can have it different.
You can do anything.
Or you could put different seeds on each strand, so they're different colours.
Exactly. That's the whole thing about playing around with seeds. With you could colour the dough even with beetroot or with turmeric. Okay. With matcha. You could do lots of different things.
So we've got the strands of dough, you've put water on your fingers, on your fingertips, you've massaged it into the strand and then rolled the strand through the seeds.
There you go.
So we've got two that have got the seeds on and we've got two without.
Yep.
Okay, so what we're going to do with these
now? So now we're going to do a little roll, and to make it nice, and by the way you can do exactly the same technique as a big challah.
Okay, so we're using a small bit of dough here to show. So what Anna's doing, we're taking the two plain strands in line with each other, so they're parallel. The two seeded strands are across the top, so we've made like a hashtag sign.
Yes. And now we're going to do a proper hashtag, where one is over and one is under.
So we've got a nice little dough hashtag here.
Yes.
Right, so this is the starting point, and what happens next?
So now you're going to see that certain bits are under the other one
Yeah,
and certain are over.
yes,
So we're going to go clockwise,
yeah.
where under,
The strand that's under goes over.
goes over.
Yeah,
The one that's under
Goes
over.
over.
The one that's under
Goes
goes over. The one that's under go over.
now this is the method that I actually wrote
Yes.
out in words in my book.
Yes.
It's not the easiest thing to do, but it has worked. People have made it. It does work.
Okay. And now we're going
Back the other way.
counterclockwise. Under goes over. Under goes
Under
over.
goes over.
Under goes over. And under goes over. And then you pinch the edges together.
Any of the edges that are sticking out, you
Yeah.
pinch together, and it
And
creates a
you
nice
bring
round.
them
Tuck them under.
Tuck them under.
And we
there
have a
you go.
nice little, look at
Look
that.
at this little roll.
So we have a nice
Okay.
little roll of dough. Look at that.
And again, if you play with different colours of seeds, etc., you really got a nice little roll.
Yeah, because you maximise.
Yeah,
the
all
shape
colour,
of it.
the shape, the colour, etc.
Please do watch this.
And again,
It will make
depending
life
on
easier.
how you place the strands with the doughs, you got different patterns as well.
Yeah.
So find the one you like and just keep at it.
So this is going to go on a baking tray and another
Yeah.
baking tray
Yeah,
that we'll cover again.
yeah.
Okay.
Now we've got a third towel somewhere over there.
I'm really hoping that no one can hear my stomach rumbling.
I think it was mine. Let's just clean the table.
Right.
Yeah, because we don't want it full of seeds and sticking around. And now we're going to be creative. And we all know this is Elaine, right? And we're going to do a little E.
We're going to do an E.
We're going
Okay.
to do an E. So I took some dough
Yeah.
and I divided it in thinking of, one bigger piece of challah for
Yes.
the edge of
Yes.
the E, and then two a bit longer and one a bit smaller.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay?
So can I do any of this?
Yes, so we're going to braid with three. I
So,
think
okay.
when I do something a little bit more complicated, I generally do three. So the way I do three, most people start at the start
Yes.
and then do three. Now,
So we've got the
because-
3 strands all parallel
Yeah.
and counter in front of you.
yes. Now when you do that and you start at the top,
Yeah.
you've got a bigger part and a smaller part
Yeah.
at the end now.
Okay.
So you start in the middle.
So you start in the middle, basically doing a standard braid like you would on your hair.
Stand braid like you would do on your hair.
Apologies
Okay.
if you can hear my dog walking around the kitchen.
Yeah. And let's
Okay.
pop that bubble. And then you just flip it round.
Right, so you've started in the middle, done it down to the bottom,
Yeah.
then you've turned it round and you're doing
and
the
you
other
do the
end
There we go.
right to the middle.
And we got the
So
edge
you've got one
of
long
your V,
braided piece.
one of your E. Yeah.
So, and you're going to do the same with the small bits?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I've got 3 little pieces in front of me and I've put them
Yeah.
parallel to each other,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start. It's a long time since I had any hair to
Want to
braid.
try on mine first?
Ha ha. Oh God, this is really
So
testing.
I start always from here in the middle.
That's it. Okay, so it's
And
one
then-
over the middle, and then over the
Yeah.
middle, and then over the middle.
Yeah.
Gee, I had a little mental block
Now
there.
try not to pull it.
Sorry. Okay.
Because then you're going to have this long thing
Yes.
like this say. So if you don't pull it, it's great. Also, if you pull it and you do it too tight, it opens up in the oven.
Right. So you want to actually be quite loose with it
Yeah.
then. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So quite loose, and don't pull the dough,
That's right.
and then bring it into your little braid.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
that.
now, perfect. And
So that's
gonna
forming the
be
middle part of
the
my
middle
E.
of your E.
Okay. So let's try with another one. So I'm going to
So
try
again,
again.
when you do that, obviously you have to think of how many strands you want or how many you need really to make whatever you want to create.
Sorry, I'm trying to. What
You did.
did I do? So I'm trying again with the
Yeah,
braiding.
that's
So
fine.
going across,
Middle.
across, middle. There we go. And we're gonna squeeze that.
Yeah,
So
just pinch it together.
and this
yeah.
is great because it does just stick to
It
itself.
just stick to itself.
And then we're
exactly.
turning it over,
Yeah.
and continuing.
That's what I said. You remember when we talked about braiding and sourdough?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it was a little bit sticky.
Yeah.
And you couldn't braid it as nicely.
So there's another one. Let's try again. So we've got the last 3 strands. Going to lay them out.
You put it under, and people ask, how does it stick? It just happens.
Because the dough sticks to itself. Okay. So let's have another go.
Yeah, you were doing right.
Over.
Middle. Over, there we go.
Do you know what? I used to be able to French braid my own hair. I had hair, a very long hair. I did once.
Perfect.
Turn it over. Okay. Look at that, David. Can you see? Look.
It's very impressive. No, seriously, it is. I mean, it's just art. It reminds me of those rope knots you sometimes see at fishing ports and stuff.
And there we go. So we got a lovely E.
So we have a nice E, and how are you going to get that onto a board?
Oh, it's very easy.
Hang on, I'm going to give you one. Yeah, let's put that over in the small one.
So normally you would shape it on the board, really.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I'm interested. Oh, so you're going to take it apart,
I'm going to
basically.
take it apart. Okay.
And then place the pieces.
Place the pieces.
And then cover it again.
And then cover it again. And then again, this would, take about 40 minutes for second rise. And then you'll see that it will stick together nicely. You can pinch it over.
I'm going to move you in so people can see what you've done.
So there we go. You pinch it over at the top. And then this goes really under. And we got a lovely E.
Look at
now
that.
Again, you could play around with seeds, you can play around with lots of don't drop
Turn it the other way around so people can see actually their proper E. Look at that.
And so you could do, numbers for birthdays, you could do letters, you could do whatever you want.
It's my E.
And again, when we at the end after, we're going to show you as well, we're going to egg wash. We're going to add some seeds, and again, if you want to play with the strands already seeded like we did the roll, you can do whatever you want.
It's really user-friendly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as we are in my kitchen at home, there's the door and a courier. Excuse me. So we're back with the dough. It's been sitting under the tea towels. Is it now at a point where you want to start baking?
It is, yes.
Okay, so let's have a look. Oh, we have nice puffy challah.
Yes.
So what are you going to do first?
I'm going to egg wash it.
Okay, so with this egg wash, you've got an entire egg.
Entire egg.
Okay,
and
so just whisk
some
that
people
up.
just use egg yolk, some people just egg white, some people use just something else. There's no right or wrong. I use a full egg, and I just brush as much as I can everywhere.
Okay. And this is going to give it a nice golden colour.
Nice golden colour, definitely. So remember, there's sugar in there as well. So
Sugar
in the dough from the honey.
And that's going to help it brown, as will the milk.
It's brown as well. There's no milk.
Oh, there's no milk. Sorry, my bad.
No milk and meat mix. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So some people might make challah with milk, but we don't.
It really is different, isn't it? If you look at challah online, there's so many different versions and different attitudes of what should be in it and what shouldn't.
But Anne, is that because the challah is eaten with meat?
Yes.
That's the issue. It's not a case of you could put milk
anything
in
in
as
it.
long as you don't eat it with meat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Oh, so you only have one portion of meat with the meal.
But obviously, generally on the Shabbat you would have a big meal, like a celebratory meal, which in many cultures would include meat.
Yes.
So that's why there's no milk or butter in the challah.
So we've now had this beautifully brushed all over.
You could put any seeds on it if you wanted to.
If you want to do it, which will now stick to the egg.
We're just going to stick to the egg. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it as it is.
Okay.
I know you like chucking seeds on it.
I
like
love
it as it
seeds.
is.
It's okay.
We have preheated the oven.
Yeah, I want to show you as well the little roll that we made, because when we egg wash the little roll,
how are you going to egg wash it?
We are going to egg wash the non-seeded bits.
Okay, so we've got now in front of us the pan with the little ball of dough which had got some strands that have got seeds on and some haven't. So you are going to put egg wash, but you're just going to put it on
Gently
the
on
bare
the
dough.
bare dough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's quite delicately done. Maybe
It is.
my brush might be a bit fat for
It
this.
is a bit fat for it, but we'll
I
manage.
do apologise. Next time I'll
Okay.
get the right utensils for
It's
you.
all right. I'll bring my own.
Well, I didn't realise you were going to need one.
What, a brush? No, I didn't ask you for a brush. I
So
asked you
we're just-
for egg. I asked you for a few bits, but not a brush. So you get away with it this time.
Honestly. Nil pois for Elaine.
Let's be another bit there.
Okay.
And there we go.
So we've got the egg wash just on the bare bits of
Yeah.
dough so that you're not sticking to the seeds, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah? And now,
That's going to go in the oven for half an hour because we're going to use the same oven for everything. I mean, you might want to remove the rolls, 25 minutes in should be ready, but if you leave it half an hour, nothing's going to happen to it.
so
It's
we've
just
got the
gonna be,
E, look at the
Yes.
E, nice big puffy E, that's huge.
especially for you. I mean,
Okay.
that's a really nice thing to do when you have a special event, a birthday, and I just love it because it's just bread art. You could do anything. So in January we have a holiday which is called Shabbat, which is the holiday of the trees. So you can shape the tree. You can play with color and have some flowers in the tree. You can have some green stuff for, the leaves and stuff.
I've seen you as well make a menorah.
Yes, at Hanukkah you make a menorah and you can play around with different types of braiding and those kind of stuff. On Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, we have a round challah because it's the end of the year going into the start of the year, so it's kind of a round. You don't have
Okay.
a braided challah. You still braid it, but you braid it in a circle. For the circle of life, the new year, going from the old to the new. And then the Shabbat after Passover, which we just had as
Yeah.
we recorded, you do a challah in a shape of a key, which is a tradition to, for a good omen for prosperity, for success, for good health, and good stuff to come.
Lovely.
There's a few traditional things, but at the same time, you could do lots of other stuff. So for birthdays, you could do this, you could do ages,
Yeah.
you could do,
Because it's so malleable, it's so easy
Yes.
to shape and handle.
It is.
So
it's
I've
great.
now brushed that with egg wash. Have I done well enough,
You
teacher?
did really well.
Yeah, so
Well
this
done.
can now go
Yes.
into the oven.
So I use the rest of talking about leftovers.
Yeah,
I take the egg, put it in a little in a little jar, and then I generally have an omelette at some point.
where you collected leftover
yeah.
from the egg.
Exactly.
Okay, brilliant. These are going to go in the oven. Let's bake.
And smell.
Yes. We now have the challah out of the oven.
Could you start that again, please?
We now have the challah out of the oven. Kitchen smells amazing. I've probably
yeah.
got slightly pink cheeks. So everything looks fabulous. It's a lovely golden brown. So we're going to hold these up. So if you're watching the video, you can see there's my E, my challah E. There's the original first braid, and our little loaf, our little twist. Everything looks amazing. So it's all a nice golden brown. This is the colour we want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. So it all depends. If you put some, lighter seeds on it, it will look a bit lighter.
Yeah.
Depending on your egg as well, the quality of your egg, it might look a bit paler or not. I think you got good eggs.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that's why it's a little bit darker.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no right or wrong. If it's too dark for you and it's not baked yet, just put some foil over it in the oven and bake it till the end.
So you protect this
Yeah.
surface. So with sourdough, one of the difficult things is, as we know, leaving it to cool to eat it at its best. Is that the same with this bread?
You don't have to.
So you can break into it
You
sooner?
can break to it definitely sooner.
Okay.
It's nice to have warm bread like
Yeah.
everyone wants to. This is not one that will shrink or anything. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the crumb will be a little bit different, but it's nice.
So
and
does
then
that,
this is bread that's eaten with a meal
Yes.
as opposed to
Well,
eaten on its own.
So we first have a small piece beforehand. So when we do the blessing on the bread,
Right.
we'll have a little bit of the bread with some salt on it.
Okay.
Just to remember that, the good things always come with a little bit of, the stuff that we had through life, etc.
Right.
So the hard things that we need to remember. Now, in the Jewish New Year, actually, we have it instead of salt, we have it with honey.
Right.
Just again to have a celebration.
Ever with oil or
No.
oil or butter,
No,
just salt or honey.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's almost like a sweetbread then.
It is a little bit. I don't think it's sweet, but we'll see what you think. You know?
So can I break a bit off?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Can I just break a bit off? I should have a knife probably. So I'm just going to break a piece
So
off.
now, interesting enough, on Friday night, some families cut it, some other break it, depending on what tradition you have in your family.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Taste time.
Is it sweet?
Not really.
There we go. Not really. There is obviously, there's 10% of the flour is my recipe as well, is honey.
The fact that Elaine isn't speaking and is eating suggests to me she quite likes it.
I think she's.
Well, we were about to celebrate the fact that I'm being quiet.
Yes.
I'm going to break a piece off to pass over to David. It's got a nice crust.
Yeah.
And nice, you can tell from the texture that it's enriched dough.
You do.
You can
It looks
see.
absolutely lovely.
You can see the layers.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it is bread that basically is screaming out to put something on it.
Yes, 100%. I mean, anything from butter, cheese, meat, whatever you want, really. Cheese, yeah.
This really is delicious, Anne. Absolutely fabulous.
There you go. Now, one thing I say, because obviously we didn't mix the dough together, make sure it is up to the point where it doesn't stick and it's super pliable. I gave my recipe to my mum and she made it and she said, yeah, it was all right. And then I made it at her house and she said, oh, my dough doesn't look like that when I finish kneading it. I say, keep kneading.
And do you knead by hand or do you use a machine?
Because I do quantities, I do machines. When I used to do, I didn't have a mixer, I used to do it by hand and I would knead for at least 15 to 20 minutes.
So how long in the stand mixer would you give this to be properly kneaded? 7 or 8 minutes on speed 2 or something?
So if you have a KitchenAid or something, it probably will be 7, 8, up to 10. I have an Uncastum. And I actually leave it 5 minutes mixing and then 2 cycles of 12 minutes, so 24 minutes.
Wow.
Which again, that mixer emulates what you do by hand, so it makes sense.
The Uncastum is a slightly different process,
Yes,
isn't it?
totally
It's not just got a dough hook, it's
No.
also got a little
I don't
paddle.
use the dough hook,
Oh,
I
right,
just
okay.
use the roller, so yeah.
But you're going to write this up for us, aren't you?
I will.
So this will all be on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I've probably got seeds in my teeth now.
Sorry.
That's okay, I'm just hoping it didn't pick it up on the video.
Would the mixing time vary? Would the mixing time vary depending on the quantity?
Start that again, you need to be speaking to the end of it.
And would the mixing time vary depending on the quantity?
So if you do it in a KitchenAid, don't do too much because you're going to kill it. So I wouldn't do more than 1 kilo of flour. You're going to kill your KitchenAid. Does it change? No, not really. In the Uncastum, maybe a few minutes, but to be honest, you can't really overmix in it. So I just do twice 24 minutes after the initial 5 minutes of mixing. And then you get this dough that is just amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful dough to handle. Actually beautiful to work with. So what we've got in front of us is also some more balls of dough because David and Karine are going to have a go with shaping these.
Yes.
Just so that you can get the feeling of the dough.
And we're not going to record that, are we?
Apparently not. But I'm going to say a big thank you before time disappears. Because this has been brilliant. It's not just to play with your dough, to be able to practice braiding, to show people braiding, but to hear about the traditions and the links between the bread and the different celebrations and festivals. You know, we've learnt an awful lot today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've
It's been great.
eaten a lot today, which has
Yeah.
been fabulous. So thank you also for the spanakopita. Thank you to Karine for your soup. And thank you for coming up here to my kitchen again and joining me. We've absolutely loved it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
We'll have you back.
Yes.
I really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. We then went on to play with some more dough. David, the podcast producer, and Karine played with some dough as well. So we've got some other photos and snippets which you'll be able to find on Instagram. I will add all of the various links for you to find everything so that you can see what we made, you can see how they looked. So do have a look around everywhere. We had a great day and a kitchen, my kitchen just full of lovely people, and I really hope that came across. And thank you to everybody who shared their tips with us on the podcast, and we'll see you next time. But I really hope you enjoyed this. Let's break bread together.